Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the Outside Insider podcast here on Philly Sports Network with myself, Liam Jenkins. You know the score by now. All things Eagles related, wrapped up, put inside a soccer ball and kicked into the goal. Goal, you say, as this podcast echoes around your eardrums and you wonder what exactly it is you're listening to right now. How has life got to this point? I can't answer that for you. All I can do is make sure that the suffering is a little bit less and we have some smiles along the way. If you are new to this podcast, or maybe you're just trying to find any reason to stay listening after such a dreadful intro, again, we can't make promises here, but we are available on the following platforms. We are on Apple, Spreaker, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Google Podcasts, one called Podbox or some, I don't exactly know what it's called, but it's on there now apparently, or Cast Present or something, and I've even heard that it is available inside of a fromage frais, which is a yogurt. I don't actually know the translation into English for fromage frais, but if you have it in America, it's probably a yogurt, or a yogurt, as I'm told they are called. Today, for me, started in a bit peculiar way, a bit of an interesting way. It's been a long week. I went to bed last night after a week now of daily videos, and so the way this week has worked is a training camp video per day, a training camp article per day, like recapping the practice, and then another article on top of that, which is maybe looking at the press conference transcripts, looking what the coaches are talking about, and then giving some insight into that particular player or battle or whatever it may be. So then I've on top of that obviously going to do the website stuff and manage everyone else and their articles. So it got to the end of the week, I was a little bit tired, and I heard that the Eagles weren't practicing on Friday. So I was like, brilliant, right, well, after National Girlfriends Day was spent, romantically making out with Philly Sports Network, the website, just kissing my MacBook over and over again and crying, I decided to get an early night, which didn't work, so I had a big lie-in. So I woke up an hour later than expected. And I did so thinking the sun is shining, Charlton Athletic season is back tomorrow, the English Football League is back, I can't wait for that. Training camp is on. Pre-season's back. I watched pre-season last night. Kevin Hogan threw a ball. So my brand is now more alive than it ever has been. And it was just a nice, serene, calm, happy day. Madden 20 was delivered through my post box. There it is. That's me shaking the case for some ASMR level. And then I opened my phone. And I got a text from one of my writers saying, "Are you going to take the Cyprien news or am I?" And I was like, whoa, what? And I had to double take. The Eagles made a signing. In the one day I have a lie-in, the Eagles make a signing in the morning. Like most announcements come in the afternoon, in the evening when everyone's home. This one, by Adam Schefter, comes out in the morning. So I scramble to my laptop, I write an article. I got it covered, don't you? I got a video up. It's child's play. I got you. But something amazing happened. Because that article was in the morning, because that news broke in the morning, I don't know if you get what I'm getting at here, but if you've been listening to this show for a while, how many shows have we had where right at the end, the 44th of 46 minutes, Eagles news is announced. I'm like, oh my god, there's Eagles news. Sorry guys, gotta go, gotta write about it. Lamau, bye. Not today, ladies and gentlemen, because we have, for the first time, news we can talk about on the podcast. Safety Jonathan Cyprien to the Eagles, and I've had a whole morning to think up talking points, to think about what this could mean for the team. I am stoked that we can actually discuss a relevant news story after it happens, as opposed to briefly mention it and then it actually happening at the end of the podcast, which makes my show relevant for a solid 17 minutes. Obviously, we're going to have the main features. Thank you, next is coming up. We're going to have a little bit more insight into the goings-on of training camp and two real aspects that I'm focusing on going into next week. Now, the news, of course, which I'm referencing is that the Eagles signed safety Jonathan Cyprien, formerly of the Tennessee Titans. He's 29 years old and is coming off a torn ACL in 2018, a year in which was supposed to be a kind of breakout job. He had 10 games in 2017 for the Titans. Wasn't bad, but was certainly a step back from the 127 tackles the career year he had with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So it's an interesting player, and I think there are a lot of ways to look at this, but the main consensus I get is that it's just depth. It's just a depth guy, just a guy coming in for depth. That's the main. It doesn't matter who you read on the Eagles beat or who writers or even us really. That this is a depth move. It's a depth signing that's there for competition. Now, you know me. I think there's a bit more to this. You don't just bring a guy in of Cyprien stature. Now, I'd say stature. I mean, he's not some elite level talent, but he's a guy that in every year in the NFL, except that 10-game season in Tennessee, where he did start 2 playoff games as well. But in those 4 years with Jacksonville beforehand, he had over 100 tackles in each season. That's hard to do. That's very hard to do. But part of the reason why he's able to do that was because he can play that linebacker role as well. Someone that can play both linebacker and safety. He's got that very Malcolm Jenkins-esque type of skill set, which is fascinating because, as we all know, Malcolm Jenkins, one of the leaders of the defense, one of the real key points of this team. He played 99% of snaps last year. And depending on who you look, some say 100, some say 99, doesn't really matter. The point is the guy is a freak of nature, an absolute god amongst men. And is easily one of the brightest spots on this Eagles roster, who deserves a payday. Now, this in itself got me thinking, because a lot of people, when they view this move, there are 2 camps, alright? There are the Andrew Sendejo's being cut for a 4th round pick, and then there are the, it's a depth guy, just competition guy, just guy that's going to come in, guy that's going to work out. This is fishier, okay, to me, than a couple breaking up, and a week later, them both having new partners. And they're flaunting it over Instagram. It's like, what has gone on there, to begin with? 1 minute you're in Dubai, taking more angles than an isosceles triangle, and the next minute you're breaking up, there's some random new girl in your life, and she's the love of your life, despite knowing her for approximately 72 minutes. That doesn't just happen. You don't just bring someone new in if what you had before was perfectly fine. That doesn't work. Doesn't wash with me. If everything is so crispy, you have to excuse my voice. I'm still recovering from what I would call dreaded man flu. But if everything is so crystal clear and perfect and lovely, there's no need to play away from home. I mean, there's no need for that anyway. It's shocking behaviour, and I would never condone so. It's disgusting. But it doesn't happen. Like, you wouldn't find that in a very happy, normal, evidence-perfect sort of situation. So why? And this caught me. CSI LJ. I was going to look into this because something stood out when I was writing the article earlier on. Obviously, you have a little look around, see what everyone else is saying. And NFL.com, as in National Football League.com, the official NFL website, posted about the signing, and in brackets put, we'd heard rumblings out of camp that Andrew Sendejo struggled in coverage playing McLeod's deep safety role. Now, I'm going to ask for a metaphorical show of hands here. I mean, you can put your hand up if you want. If you're in a public situation, probably wouldn't advise it. Someone might think you're waving at them. Then you've got to engage in an awkward conversation. There's, oh, sorry, I was just waving to my friend behind you. All right, Brian. So, metaphorical show of hands. Who else has heard rumblings that Andrew Sendejo has struggled in camp in coverage? No one? No, not even Brian at the back. Okay. Good. I'm glad we're all on the same boat, because I've not heard it either. In fact, all I've heard with regards to Andrew Sendejo is glowing praise. Whether that's from Doug Peterson, whether that is from the other reporters in attendance noticing a hit that he's making. I mean, in fact, just yesterday, as in the day before the signing, Doug Peterson walked up to the podium. He struts up with his swaggy suit and some sunglasses on probably, stands at the microphone, and when asked about unheralded guys who've stood out when you watch the film by Jeff McClain, Peterson says, I think even a veteran like Andrew Sendejo, who's coming in as a free agent and picking up our defense and learning the defense and making calls and is feeling comfortable back there. I even think, even though he's a veteran player, that's a plus for us. Yeah, I mean, that seems like he's struggling in coverage to me. That's, wow, he's all over the place. And this isn't the first time. Jim Schwartz has spoke glowingly. Other people have spoke glowingly. I've not heard a bad word about Sendejo. And I've very much gone from, what's the point in cutting him for a 4th round pick? to don't cut him at all. Like, I was questionable before. I understand there's a drive for compensatory picks. I fully get that. But why would you get... What is a late 4th round pick in all essence these days? The Eagles haven't exactly had incredible luck in the heart of the draft so far. We've had Josh Sweat last year, Sharif Miller this year. Both really... I mean, Sweat may make an impact this year. As a rookie, he certainly didn't. It's a weird one. I would much rather keep Sendejo knowing the production you're getting. So to me, the fact that NFL.com, hearing rumblings out of camp on Sendejo, says to me that the Cyprien signing may have a knock-on effect. It may be the Eagles go, hey, you know what? We can get the same level of production. We believe in our analytics, guys. We're going to take a shot on Cyprien, and we're going to cut Andrew Sendejo, and we're going to get that 4th round pick. That's one way of looking at it. But we're not done there. You think I would stop at that junction? Oh, no. You've got it so wrong, my friends. Because there's more. The second thing here is that... This is a bit of a lighter point. That Blake Countess just comes back from injury. Rodney McLeod isn't back yet. The Eagles are still light. And Jonathan Cyprien is certainly better than Trey Sullivan. So, maybe it's going to put Trey Sullivan on the chopping block. And maybe he's going to come in, be that 4th, maybe even 5th safety, a perennial special teams guy that can build his way up the depth chart, maybe mentor a player like Blake Countess, work with Sendejo, and those two then battle it out for the remains moving forward. But we're not done there. You think we're just going to stop at 2 or 3 reads? No. We're going on and on and on. The other thing to be wary of is talking of Rodney McLeod, who restructured his deal in the offseason to next to nothing. His injury's still overhanging. He is still overhanging. We don't... I mean, Rodney McLeod's not taking full action yet. He's not back in team drills. And for a veteran, you think, to know what, he's been in the league long enough. Maybe it's not that big a deal. Fine. But this is a light safety spot right now. This is a guy that's coming off a season-ending injury. A very tough season-ending injury as well. That is expected to ball out. That is expected... If he can get back to that 2018 form, he is a kingpin of the backfield of the secondary. I think he was the most underrated player in 2017, or one of them at least. He was up there for the first few games of 2018. I think the film improved that. And if he can do that in 2019, then the Eagles have got themselves a very strong safety group. But is it slightly concerning he's not taken the field yet? Is it slightly concerning that Derek Barnett hasn't taken the field yet? Got to ask yourself these questions. Are the Eagles maybe planning a slight insurance policy right now? Something else to bear in mind. But finally, we're not stopping again. It just keeps coming. You think this is what happens when news breaks and I've got momentum to do stuff, as opposed to going, oh my god, news has happened, got to write about it. This is what happens when I actually have some room to make a show around the news story. It's so much more fun, right? So much more fun. The other thing to bear in mind, and I think this is a massive, massive point, cornerback depth. As of right now, Ronald Darby yet to take part in any team drills. Jalen Mills is still on the PUP list. Cravon LeBlanc is doing Cravon LeBlanc things and breaking my heart, to put it frankly. On National Girlfriend's Day, Cravon LeBlanc was nowhere to be seen. I called, I left voicemails, I sent love letters to his house, I bought him an ice cream van, and he didn't even respond. That's another story for another day. But cornerback depth right now is interesting. We're going to touch much more on that later on, because I do want to focus on one player specifically and how I would probably be seething if this picture plays out how I think it's going to play out. But as of right now, I mean, Mike Kay put an article up today about guys who have improved their stock in training camp. And he stated that Ronald Darby is expected to start at CB1 with Avonte Maddox starting at nickel. That in itself is puzzling to me for two reasons. One, I would assume that Sidney Jones would play nickel. Especially a guy that is having a real standout camp. Now, I'm not saying that Maddox isn't, but the one guy you're hearing posterized all over social media, all over takeaway pieces, all over interviews, is Sidney Jones. It's Sidney's season. The Washington product is balling out. It's a player day. That's what everyone's saying right now. So the fact that he would lose out a nickel role to Avonte Maddox, it worries me. Now that would leave obviously Jones and Douglas to battle for the outside spot, and I would presume that Douglas would win should Jalen Mills not be able to go. But then it brings into question, why isn't Avonte Maddox moving to safety? Because Tim Hawk, the safeties coach, I've said this a million times, in an interview, stated he wants to try Maddox there and now decide at the end of the first 2 preseason games whether or not he will play safety. So far, that's just not happened, is it? I mean, Douglas has seen nickel reps, so that's good. Other than that, I've not heard anything about Maddox at safety. So the fact that they're bringing in a safety, it does kind of push Maddox back down into corner, doesn't it? He played nickel last year. I think he played it very well. So I think that's something to bear in mind. That, hey, if we're bringing in a safety right now, then we are going to push Avonte Maddox back down. He is going to be the starting nickel guy. And then you've got question marks over Sidney Jones. I honestly, at this point in the off-season, you know I wasn't a fan of the Ronald Darby signing. Like, I can't stand it. Well, I can stand it. Wow, that was quite a stern comment. That really built. I'm sorry, Ronald. Don't be mad at me. But I wasn't a big fan. At this stage in the off-season, I think having a starting trio of Douglas, maybe Avonte Maddox, maybe Sidney Jones, I'm down with that. I'm absolutely down with that. Do you know what? I think that's earned. You want to talk about... I don't want to... This is like the next segment. I'm spoiling it. There's so many ways to go down, but that's very much something we talk about a bit later on. But I feel like that if you're going to bring in a safety, it's going to force Maddox to stick at corner, which is going to cause potential complications. So unless Andrew Sendejo is the fall guy, unless Trey Sullivan is the fall guy, unless Nate Jerry, we haven't spoke about that yet, about bringing in a guy that can fill that hybrid role, that can play inside the box. The only other guy that can realistically do that right now, and does so, is Nate Jerry. Now, where is he in his development? What are we seeing out of him? The answer is, we don't really know. It's not like we've got tape to dig through for training camp. Like, I'm more than happy to dig through stuff for 2018. But linebacker right now is tricky in itself. Does it put a guy like LJ Fort? And I hope it doesn't, because LJs have got to stick together. I can't live being the only LJ. That's not how this goes. So with that in mind, it's like, okay, does it push a linebacker out in the cold? And if it does that safety then start at linebacker, or does he train at safety? So there's a whole lot of uncertainty. This is one of the most complex signings I can think of this offseason. Everyone else is like, Ronald Darby, love it or hate it, it's a CB1. Zach Brown's going to be a starting middle linebacker. You know that Andrew Sendejo should be competing for that third safety spot. You know Jordan Howard's a running back 1. This is the one signing I don't have a clue. Like, any of those 5 situations that I've just outlined could become an eventuality. Which is a great thing. It means the Eagles are unpredictable, that they've got optionality on their side, there's plenty of versatility. But it's bad from the standpoint of, it just seems a bit unnecessary. Unless there is part of a bigger plan here, unless it is to do with depth and injury. It just feels odd. I don't know, I can't be the only one thinking it. I get his depth, I get he can be a solid contributor. I know he's had a tremendous record with the Jags. But something about it isn't sitting right until we know the full details of the move. Whether it's a veteran's minimum deal, who else is being cut to make room. Until we know that, it's a mysterious one. It's sort of like when you're a kid and you go to school. I don't know if they have this in America, but obviously you can buy food at school, right? So your mum will make you a packed lunch, and you go to school, and there's always like cakes and stuff on sale. There's always like, you know, flapjacks or cookies or something nice, a little treat at lunchtime. So what you do is you go and buy yourself a cookie. You don't want to tell your mum because she'll get annoyed that you've bought school food and not eating hers, and that's not fair. So you get home, and one day you accidentally leave a wrapper in the bag, and she's like, "What's this? I make you lunch. Why are you not eating it?" It's like, you've got no reason to go out and buy a cookie if I'm making you a nice cheese and ham sandwich, Liam. What are you doing? And you're like, on the spot, it's either the food's losing out, or you're being greedy, or, you know, there's something along the line where you've got to then think of an excuse. Oh no, it's just in case I get hungry. I just buy it in case I get hungry, in case I lose the food, in case someone steals my bag and throws it on a roof, because that never happened to me. never know what you're on about. It just does. If you've already got food there, you don't need to go and buy more food. It's like, you know, when two people accidentally buy the same person very similar Christmas presents. You know, if you're doing Secret Santa, you're, I've already got him that for Christmas, and I'm his brother, like, why have you bought him a new hairdryer? It's like, oh no, this is in case the other one doesn't work, or this one's blue, it's better, he can use this on holiday, and you try and justify it. I just feel this is a scrambly move. It is literally the equivalent of breaking up with someone, and then finding someone new, then seeing them in town a week later and going, oh no, this is nothing bad, it was an amicable break, it was fine, Natasha's nice, isn't she? See, I mean, it's just fine. It's just drinks. It's not anything serious. It's just a drink, and then you end up married a week later. So, you know, if you're enjoying this podcast, guys, again, let me know your comments down below on the YouTube channel if you're watching. If not, you can tweet me at Liam Jenkins PSN, and don't forget, if you could rate it 5 stars, that would be absolutely lovely. On the Apple iTunes page. It's the best way to help our podcast grow. I know not all of you have that, so for those of you who don't, just five taps on a desk and I will hear it telepathically. Yeah, I'm tuned in to woodwork materials all around the world. I'm like an oak machine. Yeah, I can hear everything. So not that. You can stop that now, Derek at the back. All right, but that'd be lovely. On that note, while we're talking Twitter, while we're talking social media, it brings us to a very important part of the show. Something that rhymes with stank do text. Of course, for those of you who haven't got it, I'm of course talking about Thank You Next, the part of the show where I take your questions, throw them up in the air, hit the whoa, definitely didn't just do that, that's embarrassing, and give them an answer. So we're going to kick things off with No Pro Sports 1, one of our YouTube channel's most loyal subscribers, asks if you could pick any former Eagles player jersey to have, whose would it be and why? Now, do you mean as in a player giving me a game-worn jersey? Because that, I think, is a very different question to me ordering and adding another Sam Bradford jersey to my already existing collection. I'm going to go with the top one because that's more of an interesting deal. I think, obviously, Reggie Brown. It is certainly up there. So, I mean, Reggie White, wrong colour. I meant Reggie White, not Brown. Sorry, you can tell I've not had my coffee. Reggie White, it's Reggie White. Got a bit confused. Got a bit confused with Jerome Brown, who would be another. See what I did? That was a lucky bloody save. But yeah, Jerome Brown and Reggie White. I think both of those guys will be very interesting. I just think Jerome Brown is like, it's that eternal legacy type thing, isn't it? It's the fact that because he's not here anymore, you can't hear those stories. You can't really ever get that foresight back into his career, and the fact that he was just so dominant. I don't know. That's always intrigued me. Outside of that, I wouldn't say McNabb. I wouldn't say T.O. I would have said LaShawn Jackson. Maybe LaShawn McCoy. That'd be kind of cool. Like a snowball. LaShawn McCoy's snowball jersey. Let's go with that. Or Brent Selleck's. Ooh. Now, we'll go with LaShawn McCoy. LaShawn McCoy's snowball jersey, I would love in my life. That would be amazing if we could get that. Next up, then, we've got plenty of questions to get through, so strap yourselves in. Settle down, boys and girls, because here we go. Thank you next at Cheeky Kiri Lynn. I think I got your name right. I tried my best here, but it's our first time submitting a question, so massive shout out to Kiri. Who has surprised you the most in camp so far? Could be positive or negative. I'll give you both because I'm a generous man. They call me the J and LJ stands for generous, but with a J. You can see how smooth that was. I think most positive surprise, honestly, probably would be Sendejo, because everyone just had this predetermined mindset where he would be cut the second. It's like, nah, he's not here, 4th round pick, sha-la-la-la-la, Trey Sullivan truthers. And I think for him to come out and immediately make an instant impact and start thudding guys and making his presence felt, like, fair play to him. Like, that's a real positive surprise. The rest of them, I think, you look at guys like Josh Sweat, I think that's a guy that a lot of people wanted to break out, and he pleasantly is. In terms of a negative, Do I want to say Sharif Miller, who's currently like DE 6 or 7 on the depth chart? Probably not, because you didn't expect him to break out. You know he's going to be a slow burner, someone that has a lot of work to do, but he's not done anything of note, and I think he's buried so far where even Joe Ostman can be challenging for a spot. That's not good. I like the Sharif Miller pick. I like his mentality. I just think it's a very bare bones game right now. Like it's like, you know, you've ordered a chicken wing and it's just but you need the meat on the bone and it's just not there yet. So Sharif Miller's let me down a little bit. Back onto positives, so Alex Singleton, because I think I'm the biggest Alex Singleton truther in existence. I've been pulling that train for quite some time. Like, my back is hurting from doing so. And one more negative, it's really difficult. I think Clayton Thorson, I think you've naturally got to be a bit disappointed with the fact that he's just volunteeringly throwing balls into the dirt, and wobbling everywhere. It's not been a good look. He struggled at OTAs, he's struggling now. That's not great. So Clayton Thorson's definitely one of the more negatively surprising ones. Thank you next, South Philly Grinding, who has been extremely nice to me on Twitter the past couple of days. So a massive shout out to him. Thank you for all of your support. Do you think we keep 5 running backs on the 53? If so, who gets the 2 spots up for grabs? Alright, so if I'm going to count them out in my head and just say them, that might be the most logical answer. So we know that Howard, Sproles and Sanders are done. After that, my heart still wants Boston Scott on the roster. I don't think he'll get. I think Corey Clement, and I think they will keep a 5th, and it will be Boston Scott just in case Sproles goes down and because of the special teams value. But he doesn't stop there. He also asked me prioritise stock in the DB room, which likely ends with letting a very few capable DBs walk. Who makes the 53 and starts outside? Making the 53 I think is a bit of a wild card at the minute, because we don't know if LeBlanc and Mills will be on the 53 or if they'll be on IR or if they'll be on a PUP. So if you take those 2 out of it, as of right now in the picture we've got and just the 53, I think having Darby, Maddox, Jones, Douglas is key. Outside of those 4, it gets a little bit. I'd love to see Jay Liggins crack the roster. I think he's got practice squad written all over him now. Jeremiah McKinnon could be a name to watch. He's got some special teams work in there recently. But I do think that they'll keep 5 or 6 DBs or cornerbacks, with LeBlanc or, of course, Jalen Mills being the other. But Orlando Scandrick will be the other name to add in there for now. So you have 5 in there with Scandrick on. And finally, Barnett breakout season. Yeah, why not if he practices? We'll give him that, shall we? There's a slice of cake that no one wants to eat. Derek Barnett hasn't been anywhere ever. That's slightly worrying. More on that a little bit, I'm sure, in the weeks to come. Thank you next, SoFlo Cozy, who's become another regular interactor on. I've got a little hive going on. I love it. He says, how's Singleton been looking in? He knows. He just knows, doesn't he? He knows how to get me a bit flustered. I'm a little bit, not gonna lie, my a bit need a minute. Need to calm down. He's been looking stupendous, absolutely fabulous, mesmerising, masterful, brilliant, exceptional are the choice words I would use. If I were to compare him to an actor, I wouldn't compare him to Brad Pitt. I'll compare him to, I don't know. I'd probably call him Jason Statham. Yeah? Oh, the old Stathanator, the man who, of course, was the Transporter, because that's where we go. I mean, he's in a lot of films called The Transporter, The Meg. I mean, that's a new one. The Meg, I guess it's about someone called Megan. The Mechanic, The Mechanic Resurrection, Transporter 3, just naming a few of them here. And of course, my favourite, Snatch. And that's what Alex Singleton's going to do. He's going to snatch a roster spot. So I would say that wasn't the question you were asking, was it? On reflection, he's doing all right, SoFlo. He's doing all right. Thank you. Next at Proto Tyler. How would you cast Eagles players as members of the Marvel Cinematic Universe? I've got a problem here, Proto Tyler. I've not seen any of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and the reason for that, before you shout, as much as I bloody love Power Rangers, right? I haven't had time. I haven't had time. It's so scary, because you're like, I just want to watch a Marvel film, and you'll see Guardians of the Galaxy on Netflix, and you'll go to put it on, and you see like all these recommended titles, and you're like, oh my god, this is like the 7th film in part 27, chapter 12 of a galaxy universe where I need to know everything that's ever happened ever. So you go to look at the Marvel Cinematic Timeline, and it starts with Iron Man, which is the blandest film of all. I didn't like the first one, I didn't like the second one, so I'm going to watch him again just for the sake that I enjoy Guardians of the Galaxy or Avengers. I'm not a fan. I like the original Spider-Man, I like Daredevil on Netflix, that's one of my favourite things, and I like The Punisher on Netflix, that's one of them, and Jessica Jones is pretty cute. But outside of that, the Avengers and all that, I've not watched them. I'd rather watch Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue. You know where you are there, with the White Ranger and that little wolf on his back. Marvel Cinematic, you just don't know what's going on. And then Twitter spoil it, and it's like, if you don't watch it, you're some subsidiary scum that doesn't understand. And I just don't have time. I'm too busy grinding film rooms. Or why don't we play what members of the All-22 universe would the Eagles be? That'd just be the Eagles, wouldn't they? Really? I will answer your question though. Daredevil would be Alex Singh. No, I'm joking. Daredevil would be probably Carson Wentz. The Punisher would be Fletcher Cox. Jessica Jones, because she's a little bit sneaky, isn't she, old Jess? She's likes running about a bit. So Jessica Jones would probably. It would have been Chris Long, because that was my man crush on the team. Not anymore, because he's not there. So next closest would. It's got to be Zach Ertz, isn't it? I suppose. Luke Cage can be. Who's an absolute Goliath other than me and my 38-inch vertical? A tricky question. Probably. Timmy Jernigan can be Luke Cage because he's just pissed off at the minute for some reason. And then we're gonna have Jordan Howard play Foggy Nelson. Because why not? Because we like a wild card, don't we? That's what we like. Anyway, moving on from that. Probably one of the worst answers I've ever given, I'm afraid. I'm really sorry about that, Tyler. I hope that hasn't disappointed you in any way. We've saved our most loyal listener for last. Volker JD, who submits it before I put the tweet out. He knows I'm going to tweet out asking me questions. He's like, don't worry, Liam, I've got your back. Here's mine before it. I've got you. So he says, besides Wentz and Cox, which Eagles jersey would you buy next? Ooh. This is, I don't know about Eagles. My mum bought my last one. I don't like buying jerseys now because I try not to call myself a fan just because of work. So, I don't know. It would probably... It would be a DB, but at the minute it's such a roller coaster and a carousel. You never know who's going to stick on. So, maybe old school. Maybe like a Brian Dawkins one. Or maybe I just go out and buy another Sam Bradford one because I like my Sam Bradford jersey. It's a good jersey. I'm wearing that in Sunday's episode of This Week in Philadelphia Sports. So, but he also says, I was a DB myself, thinking long-term player. Maybe Maddox. Your opinion doesn't have to be a DB. Well, I'll join you. Let's rep Maddox jerseys together and we can skip along singing a song about Maddox, being like, oh, big Avonte Maddox, he wears a magic hat, and when he breaks a pass up, we all like that. There you go. That's the first verse. That's the real verse. Wait till you see verse 2 in the chorus. But that is it. But thank you next, guys. Thank you for all of your questions. As always, if you want to submit them, at Liam Jenkins PSN is the place to do so on Twitter. You can YouTube them as well, I suppose. Like, why not? Give them a little shot. But as of right now, the place to do it is on my Twitter page. And talking of which, we're now back to DBs. The last question was defensive backs. The topic we're going to end with is there is one player, I've made this point before, but I think now it's even more important, who I would be absolutely... If I was him, there is the potential that in a week's time, I am seething. And that man is... Rasul Douglas. The reason for that is that as a rookie, he comes in, absolutely fine, everything's great. And Ronald Darby goes down in week 1. So he's like, brilliant, I get opportunity. Right, let's go, boys. Onto the field he goes. Relatively impressive, develops quite well. And then Darby comes back. Douglas is hot. Douglas is annoyed. Some understandable friction between Douglas and Jim Schwartz. And Douglas ends up on the bench. Year numero dos. Ronald Darby goes down again. But it's not just Darby. It's the entire secondary. But there seems to be some overhanging friction from before. Maybe Douglas isn't happy with Schwartz. Maybe he's complaining about the lack of playing time. I don't know. But he's not a happy bunny. He's scrunching his face really tight like that, like really tightly, like grr. That really hurt. And he's not a happy bunny. So then, instead of giving Douglas a shot when defensive back depth is needed, I say this every other week. What am I going to say, people at the back? They bring on a cornerback off the street who comes in and runs into Jordan Hicks. Ah! That one. Then they start Douglas because Darby goes down and he kind of has to keep hold of it. And that's the end of that. But year number 3, they bring back Ronald Darby. It's like he can't get away from him. And even in a week's time, according to Mike Kay, like I said earlier, this was what I was getting to, Ronald Darby is expected to start one side with Avonte Maddox at nickel. Now, if that is the case, there is a chance that Douglas wins a second outside role and Jones becomes a backup nickel. But that's, in itself, a rock and a hard place. Because if Sidney Jones gets that outside role, which is what you'd expect from a second round pick, he got shoved inside. Like, he was expected to be an outside guy. He was expected to be that lockdown corner. Instead, he's kind of just been moulded into a nickel because, well, we can't upset Jalen Mills. He's got green hair. We can't take Ronald Darby out. He costs too much. So he just is a nickel. Which is annoying. And that obviously has been unhealthy and injured and stuff as well. But if Jones wins the outside role, Rasul Douglas is like, yo, year 1, I get shunned after playing well for a guy that doesn't play well upon returning until like 6 weeks in. Year number 2, you literally bring on Steven, who sells sandwiches for a living, strap him up with a helmet and he runs into his own player before giving me a shot. And year number 3, I'm still not good enough to start outside. I would be kicking off. I would be spinning around and throwing things and hitting. I would be fuming. If he gets CB2, fine, yeah, cool, debate's over. Liam's last 7 minutes don't really matter. But if it doesn't, if Darby comes back, and Ronald Darby takes those first team reps, I'm still annoyed. And I get this, oh yeah, he played with a chip on his shoulder. Yeah, but there's a difference between a chip on your shoulder and a team consistently shoving you down despite you doing everything. It's like CM Punk in wrestling. It's that same thing. It doesn't matter what he does, how good he does it, he's not going to be the top guy for whatever reason. Maybe it's a Jim Schwartz thing, I don't know. But it's upsetting. From a neutral perspective, it's upsetting because you see how much he puts in. And I really, really hope this is the year that changes, where Rasul Douglas can go out and be a starter at CB2. And hey, do you know what? He might be terrible. And if he gives up 800 yards worth of touchdowns and is somehow worse than Jalen Mills, then I'll hold my hands up and I'll be like, I've been fighting the wrong battle for the last 3 years. Let's all jump off the train. But no, until that time, he hasn't been given an opportunity. It's not fair. So if he doesn't get that outside role, if it goes to Sidney Jones, there is a problem. Even worse if Sidney Jones gets the nickel and Avonte Maddox gets the outside role. Because then you're even more fuming. Because then that's another guy they've drafted and he's now ahead of you. Why does he get a shot? What has he proven over Russell Dunn? It's that, for me, as a guy looking at him, I can understand the frustration and I will be kicking and screaming. So I hope that's not the case. But I don't know how many more times you've got to be replaced and friend-zoned and shoved around. It defines my love life, I swear. Honestly. It's just you get so close to starting and then they're like, nah. And then you build back up and go again and you're like, nah. And it's just and how many more times is it going to take to try before he realises, nah, I'm not happy, I want to leave. I want to force a trade, get me out. I've got value. Know my worth. I don't know. It's a really weird situation. But I want to end on a happy note. And that is something else I've noticed in training camp. And one of the big standouts most recently has been Carlton Agadosi. Legend of the podcast, Carlton Agadosi. The man who, when questioned, when will my son get in the car to find an anagram of an Eagles player, Connor, friend of the pod, friend of LJ, submits an answer sheet saying Carlton Agadosi as opposed to Carson Wentz. So Agadosi balls out in camp at 6'6", catches 3 touchdowns, I believe, inside the red zone, and that brought up an interesting point. That I think now the Eagles have got speed on their side, they're now looking at size. And I want to shout 2 people here. One of them, Warren Sharp, who dropped the information. Another for Chad from BGB for bringing it to my attention. That the Eagles ran the 3rd most red zone plays in the last 3 years, but have a success rate that ranks 17th in the league. So they run the 3rd most red zone plays and rank 17th in the league. So now you've got a lineup of Arcega Whiteside, Alshon Jeffrey, Dallas Goedert, Zach Ertz, Jordan Howard. The list goes on, and then you're going to have guys like Carlton Agadosi at 6'6", who could make the team for that very reason. Do not be surprised if an underdog receiver, someone like a Charles Johnson, who's a bigger body, someone like a Greg Ward, who's a bit more physical, make this team over a Shelton Gibson. Then there's Mac Hollins, who's 6'4". He's tall. Not as tall as LJ's 38-inch vertical, but, you know, beggars can't be choosers. It's just interesting that I think that there has been a recent focus on size over speed. And it's the next bubble. It's absolutely the next bubble. As the rest of the offenses around the NFL work on RPOs. And that's another thing, really quickly. That's a thing that's pissed me off. Alright, last year, I don't know what it is. I really hope I'm not annoying anyone when I say this. But it feels like every year, one writer will say something, and the rest bandwagon around it and make content around. And I'm not saying, a Carson Wentz article or something. Like, it's literally, we had RPOs became a national thing because the Eagles ran an RPO. Everyone was, that sounds cool. Let's make that the centre point of headlines for the next 7 years so we sound more intelligent. Now it's become 12 personnel. Like, no, they ran 12 personnel like more than anyone in the league last year. This isn't new. This isn't some fun new fact. Like, they run 12 personnel as a focal point since Peterson got here. It's 13 personnel that's the difference, where you've got Richard Rodgers who's back, who missed last year so they couldn't run 13 personnel. So you've got an inline inline blocker, deploy jumbo packages, and have a run, or have an RPO basing off it. It's 13, but I don't know why everyone is entering press conferences asking Doug Peterson about 12 personnel. You guys like 12 personnel? What does Dallas Goedert mean for 12 personnel? Well, it means he's the second tight end in a formation where there is also 2 tight. I don't know what more you want. That is the thing this year. It was RPOs last year. It's 12 personnel this year. Next season, it is gonna, I guarantee you next year will be wham and trap runs. 110%. That's the way this is going to go. But it's just like, guys, you watch football games. Like, I'm in the same, this is our jobs. This is what we do. You have an opportunity to talk to a head coach after a practice about anything you want. And you beat the same tree for a year. Just quick jump off the bus now. And we'll ask something new. We know Dallas Goedert's huge. We know Zach Ertz is an elite tight end. We know that getting them both on the field at the same time is very fun. But it's 13 personnel where there is no attention being paid to. There should be because of Richard Rodgers. I've just dropped my phone out of anger. Richard Rodgers is back. I feel like that if you get a third tight end on the field, obviously someone's going to miss out. That's where you can have a slot conversation over, well, what happens with Nelson Aguilar? Could you cut him in exchange for use of more 13 personnel? See, these are the discussions we want to have. And I'm glad I got this rant out of my way. I said I was going to end it on a happy note, didn't I? That didn't go well. Apologies about that. I really tried to end on red zone plays and Eagles going bigger and it's all going to be great because look at the height, and it just sideboarded into a rant that is, yeah, sorry about that. Anyway, for slightly more in-depth Eagles analysis and stuff like that, you can head to phillysportsnetwork.com. There are daily videos on the Philly Sports Network YouTube channel from yours truly, and of course this weekly podcast. Ladies, gentlemen, in-betweeners, children, pets, and I was going to say hamsters, but they're pets as well. Thank you so much for lending me your ears for the last 45 minutes. I hope I've not just woken you up from a sleep. I'm very sorry if I have. If you want to follow me on Twitter, again, at Liam Jenkins PSN. Thank you for all of your support. It really does mean the absolute world to me. I'm so lucky to be in a situation where this is my full-time job, and I hope that I can dedicate every second of every day to doing this and giving you guys the best content out there. Like, if this site and podcast or channel or whatever becomes your home for Phillies, like the idea of someone waking up in the morning and the first thing they're doing is checking to see what's on Philly Sports Network, that's a dream for me. Like, it makes me literally cry. So that's always a dream, and to know that that is slowly becoming a reality for some people, like, it means more than I could ever put into words. So just thank you so much for believing in me, for believing in what we do. And let's just have a great season. Enjoy your weekend of English football. Watch Charlton Athletic. They're playing the almighty Blackburn Rovers in a game I'm sure 3 of you will watch. And from myself, I'll see you next time.